Civilization 7 has just released, and with it are a whole bunch of new mechanics to learn and master. One of the most impactful early game techniques that you can use is the leapfrog technique, which looks confusing at first, but is surprisingly easy to master. In this video, we explore why the leapfrog is so important to utilize throughout the ages and how mastering it can improve your game massively. My name is Drongo, this is Civ 7, and join me as we take one more turn. In Civilization 7, the most important resource is not food, it's not production, and it's not science. It's actually your citizens. The more citizens that you have, the more tiles that you can work, and the more tiles that you're working, the more that your city is contributing to your victory. In this scenario, we're looking at one specific tile that contributes a lot more than a second one. And to get to this tile, we need to grow before we get there. It's not in our initial ring around the capital, so because of that, we have to put down a farm to get there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grow out to this tile now that we've got it, but I'm left with a problem, and that problem is that I've got a tile that I don't need to work anymore, and that's because it has served its purpose. Now, don't get me wrong, 2 food and a single happiness, it's decent, but we could be doing something better with this citizen. After all, it's our most important resource. So what we're going to do instead is look towards this sheep. This is going to be our next expansion direction, and because of that, we're now going to produce a granary and put it down on this tile. When we put the granary on this tile, it's going to kick this citizen out. It is now homeless. It has been evicted. And with that, we then move it onto a new tile. And now this tile is going to allow us to come out here eventually and grow onto the sheep. Now, it's going to take some time for this granary to complete. And if we go through, eventually, we'll be up to the next population slot. And now we can take the sheep. And by doing this, what we've done is we've sped up our early game. It might not seem like a lot. You look at that and say, okay, well, it's only 3 extra production that you're getting. Surely your town is that's not that significant, right? Well, if we actually take a look at our town, you'll see that it's got 8 production. So by not doing this and by delaying this, we are delaying potentially a 3 production boost, so from 5 up to 8, for a very long time. And because of that, we want to maximize our efficiency in the early game by doing this. This is the building block of the leapfrog technique. It's taking citizens that are no longer serving their purpose and then moving them onto a new task. And just the same way that we leapfrogged this citizen here, we would look to leapfrog this citizen here eventually. So we can actually do that right now. We can purchase a building, we can put it down here, and we can now look to grow out onto this tile. And once again, we want to get them perhaps over onto, as an example, just the iron. So to do that, we would, in this situation, we're going to be able to purchase it because we've got the gold. In most games, you're not going to have that. But once again, we then come out. So that is your basic building blocks for getting these citizens into new tiles. And the great thing about leapfrogging is it's not just something that you do in the early game. In fact, there's a huge amount of applications that leapfrogging can be useful for. So let's take a look at each of them and see what you can actually do with it. So this is the first leapfrog. This is called the basic leapfrog. It's nice and simple. You're just going to grow to 1 tile, and then your second citizen is going to come out onto a resource tile like this one. And then from here, all you need to do is just take your production, put it on that first one, and that's just going to evict them out, and then you can reallocate them onto a higher value tile. Nice and simple. So this leapfrog technique is called the Leapfrog Fail. And what you're going to do is expand out towards a resource, and then from there, you're going to put your granary down or any other production building that you want. You're going to put it on that tile, and then you're going to click your Grow City button, and you're going to see that you can't actually expand onto the resource you want. And there's a very specific reason why this is. That is because you don't have an anchor point to get out here. To get out here, you actually need a citizen that's connecting you. And this granary right now is under construction. That means that it's not actually a citizen yet. In 5 turns, it will be a citizen, but currently it's not a citizen. And because of that, we can't actually get out there. Now, if we grow to this tile and we speed the game up a little bit, if we go for another 2 turns, 1 more turn after this, and now we can grow out to here because we've got that anchor point. That's the key distinction that we're looking for, is we need that anchor point. So just to demonstrate the concept of the anchor point again, we're just going to be expanding over towards the right here. We'll go ahead and take these 2 tiles, and from here what we're going to do is anchor with this farm. Now that we've got a citizen that's in this position, this is our anchor tile, and because of that, any of these tiles we can now expand into freely, and we can kick this citizen out, but we can't kick this citizen out until we've got our anchor down. So if we take our granary right now and plop it on top of that tile, evict it, you'll see that we can still expand out here, and that's the importance of having that anchor. The next type of leapfrog is the interrupting frog, and that's where you take an expansion, like we're doing right now, out towards the tiles, and we want to move out over onto this gypsum once again, but we're training a scout. Well, what do? Well, very simply, we just grab our granary, we put it on the tile, and hit OK, but you'll see that it's gone into our queue. We're still working this tile. So what we're going to do is interrupt our scout. That's going to kick out the citizen. We can then take the gypsum, and then we'll move the scout back to the top of the queue. That way, we're still able to build our scout just as we originally intended. Our next leapfrog technique is called the double frog, and that's because we have 2 leapfrogs that are occurring at the exact same time. They're simultaneous, so let's show you how to do it. We're going to grow our city down towards this gypsum, which is a few tiles away from our capital. From here, we're going to look to evict our first citizen by dropping down a fishing key and moving them over towards the cotton, because this is the good stuff. This is where we want to get out towards. So from this position, our next eviction is going to happen on this flat tundra tile, but we can't actually evict them because we don't have a connection. We do not have an anchor out here because this is under construction. So what we're going to do is we're going to purchase. We'll remove this from the queue, and we'll purchase the fishing key in this position. From here, it's then just as simple as dropping down the granary in this spot, and that's going to evict the citizen. We can then move them over towards this cotton tile, and now here comes the simultaneous leapfrog. We're going to get this brickyard, and we're going to put the brickyard down on the connecting and move the brickyard up in our queue, and that's going to give us now access to a second citizen, which we can then put in our gypsum, and we've got 2 active leapfrogs that are occurring simultaneously. That, my friends, is the double leapfrog. This leapfrog technique is called the specialized leapfrog. It's designed to take advantage of towns that are specializing, just like our town here that wants to start sending food to the connected cities. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this town, and we're going to dive into the town details. From here, we can actually see exactly what improvements we've got. We've got fishing boats ×3, we've got 2 plantations, a mine, and a quarry. Now, 2 of these upgrades or 2 of these improvements are not like the other, that being the quarry and the mine. Now, the quarry, it's on the gypsum, so we're not going to be able to remove it. However, the mine, we used as a connector to get out over onto the cotton. And what we want to do when we're specializing is we want to try and make as many of the yields all take advantage of the town's focus. And in this situation, the town focus that we'd be looking to take advantage of is the fishing town focus. So by going into the town and then building anything on top of that specific tile, it's going to evict the citizen. And from there, we can then take that citizen and put them in a more appropriate tile. So now instead of it working a production tile, which is turned into gold, it's now actually working a food tile. And it means that when we do move our fishing town or do specialize our fishing town, we're now getting that bonus for that citizen as well. But it works both ways. If we take a look at this town, it's set up slightly differently. It's not so obvious what it's going to be, but we can enforce what we want upon it. If we take a look at the town details, we'll see that there's 2 farms, a mine, a camp, a mine, and a plantation. Now, we're not going to be able to get rid of this plantation. It's on a resource, but these 2 farms that we use to connect the resources in the town up, we can replace these. So what we're going to do is look to remove these 2 tiles with any buildings, and we're going to expand those down towards the marsh. And the marsh is going to provide us with tiles that are a little bit more conducive to our specialization. So now, all of a sudden, if we take a look at our town breakdown, we'll have 1 mine, a second mine, a camp, and 2 clay pits, as well as that 1 plantation. And it means that now that we want to specialize, because it's going to take 13 turns for us to grow, which is quite a bit, what we can do is we can change it to a mining town, and that's going to give us a lot better of a return for our investment. This next leapfrog technique is called the land grab leapfrog, and that's because you use it to grab a lot of land. we're in the fortunate position of having settled Mount Kilimanjaro, but unfortunately, a neighbor has come along and decided they want a piece of the pie. So what we're going to do is shore up our defenses with the available citizen that we've got from our natural growth, but still, our gold tile here is exposed. And we want to make sure that it doesn't go over to Ben Franklin. So what we can do is take this town, click on it, and drop a granary down on an existing tile that we've already used. So this citizen here was grown out down to the south as a farm. So what we're going to do, throw that granary down, that's going to evict the citizen, and then we can take that citizen and then look to grow along the north. That shores up the defense along the north and guarantees that that gold, as well as this gypsum down here, is just going to be safely within our borders. Ben Franklin doesn't have a chance. Now, this brings us towards the end of this video, and it's important to remember that this strategy, this technique, isn't without caveat. Whenever you use the leapfrog technique, you're using up a building, you're using up a slot, and these are something that are very limited. As an example, here in our capital, we have got limited locations to place things down. But further to that, we also get bonuses from the buildings that we put adjacent to our palace. As an example, if I built a monument, that's going to get a 1 science, 3 culture, and 1 influence bonus here. So it gets a 1 culture and 1 science bonus over anything else. And that goes for the garden, that goes for the altar, anything is going to get that. And when you use that building up early on, there is the risk that you're also missing out on the opportunity of that culture and of that science. But other than that, there is very little downside to utilizing these leapfrog techniques in your gameplay. Overall, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you've got any feedback, please leave it down below, positive or negative. If you've enjoyed it, then I'd encourage you to leave a like. And of course, if you're looking forward to more Civ 7 content, then make sure you hit that subscribe button. And remember, there's always time for one more turn.